Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's hybrid program. My name is Beth. I'm the adult programming librarian here for the Mid-Continent Public Libraries. And like I said, we have a hybrid program this evening. So it's a little different than some of our normal programs. We have folks here in the room with us at our Lee Summit branch, and we also have folks joining us online. So a couple of housekeeping items that we'll ask you to follow. For those of you that are here in the room, if you can silence cell phones and devices. For those of you online, we are going to ask that you remain muted so that we have good sound quality. And then if you have questions online, we'll have you type them in the chat so that I can read them so that our folks here in the room can hear them as well. For those of you that are here in the room, we'll ask our presenter this evening, Brent Frazee, to repeat those questions so the folks online can hear them. For those of you here in the room, if you need the restrooms or drinking fountains this evening, you'll go out the door and to your right. You also have a yellow sheet in front of you. That is our program evaluation. So we hope you'll take a moment at the end of the program to fill that out and tell us how we did. We like getting that feedback and also any suggestions that you might have for topics you'd like to see for programs. We always appreciate those as well. For those of you online, here in a minute, I will drop the link to the survey into the chat for you so that you can fill that out. And I will also email it out at the end of the program to our registrants. Tonight's program is also being recorded. So whether you're here in person or online, I will email out the link to the recording to all registrants once that is available on our YouTube channel. I also wanted to mention some upcoming programs before we get started. And the first program I want to mention is a virtual program that is on Zoom, and that is Missouri Mushroom Hunting 101 on April 21st at 6:30. It's mushroom season here in Missouri, and we'll be joined by a naturalist from Burr Oak Woods who will talk about the types of mushrooms that you can find in Missouri, where you can go to find them, and which ones make a good addition to your dinner plate. The second program I wanted to mention is Engineered Irony, Octave Chanute's Kansas City Bridge. We have that at a couple different locations throughout the system. On April 23rd at 7, it will be at our Woodneath branch as well as on Zoom, another hybrid program. On May 11th at 2:30 in the afternoon, it will be at our East Lee Summit branch, so just down 50 Highway past the hospital. And then on May 19th at 6:30, it will be at our North Independence branch. But local historian David Jackson will be talking about the engineering marvel that transformed Kansas City into really metropolis. That's the Hannibal Bridge, which was the first bridge constructed across the Missouri River. So he'll be talking about the men and women who constructed the bridge, and he has some wonderful images of the construction and Kansas City as it was at that time. The next program I want to mention is also a hybrid program, and this one is on May 1st at 6:30. It is in person at our Colburn Road branch here in Lee Summit, as well as on Zoom. We're going to be joined by astronomer Joe Wright, who will be talking about the James Webb Space Telescope. He did some programs for us after it launched about the construction of the launch. And this time he's going to talk about what some of the things they've been able to see and learn from the images that the telescope has produced. So he should have some great images for that. Here at our Lee Summit branch on May 7th at 6:30, researching your World War II veteran. So staff from our Genealogy Center in Independence will be here and they can give you suggestions and resources that are good places to start if you have a World War II veteran that you're looking for in your family tree. And then on May 8th at 6:30, our friends from the University of Missouri Extension will be here at the Lee Summit branch doing a program called Cook Once, Serve Twice. So they'll have suggestions for ways that you can repurpose leftovers and make new dishes out of them so that if you're like me and you're cooking for one, you're not eating the same thing for an entire week. Um, so, and of course, you can always go online to mymcpl.org/events or pick up one of our program guides. But with that, I want to introduce our presenter this evening. Brent Frazee is here to talk about the Muddy Moe's Hidden Beauty. Brent was the outdoor editor for the Kansas City Star for 36 years before retiring in August 2016. During that time, he won more than 50 state, regional, and national awards for his writing and photography. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Outdoor Writers Association of America and was inducted into the Waterfallers Hall of Fame in 2015. He continues to write both freelance for magazines as an author of books and on his website. Brent lives on a beautiful lake in Parkville, Missouri with his wife Jana and his yellow lab. So I'll turn it over to Brent here.
Good, thanks, Beth. Okay, thanks for coming out, everybody. I appreciate it. We're gonna have some fun tonight. I have, when I was at the Kansas City Star, obviously had to come up with a weekly deadline, had to fill that page, fill that Sunday page. Now they don't even have an outdoor page, so it's kind of sad to see that. But for 36 years, I would have to come up with different story ideas on the outdoors, fishing, hunting, camping, canoeing, you name it. And one of the things I've always been fascinated by the Missouri River. I was brought up in Wisconsin, so I didn't know much about the Missouri River. I just knew that it was the St. Louis area, that it was murky and looked polluted and everything like that. Then I got here when I moved here in 1980. I saw that there was really a lot more to the Missouri River than met the eye in downtown Kansas City. So one year I went and I traced the entire Missouri River. I went to its headwaters in Montana, and then I didn't go by boat. I'd still be paddling if I went by boat, but I went from spot to spot by vehicle, and it was fascinating. Just fascinating to see how the different communities along the river treat the river, and how in some places it's a treasure. I've always been kind of sad that Kansas City does not really treasure the Missouri River. I mean, it's channelized in our area. It's murky. It's a little bit polluted, not as much as you think. We're cleaning it up. but there's a lot of recreational possibilities that we could be taking advantage of here in the Kansas City area. And I'm hoping before I pass away, we'll see that somewhat, that we'll treasure the Missouri River as for what it is. But anyway, this scene right here was in northern Missouri. It was just north of St. Joe. And yeah, it's a channelized version and the water's a little bit murky, but look at the shoreline. It's still in its wild state. I mean, it's beautiful in its own way. It's still a beautiful area and there's a lot of wildlife living in those woods right along the river. You float down the Missouri River, even in our area, you'll see a lot of different wildlife. You'll see a lot of deer coming down to get a drink. You'll see wild turkeys. You'll see just an amazing diversity of songbirds. So it's pretty neat. We're gonna take a little virtual trip down the Missouri River. We're gonna, first of all, we gotta do the boring stuff first. We gotta, there, oh, it's not coming up. There, just took a while. Okay. Oh, is it? Okay,
There you go.
okay. Uh-oh, it just, you're gonna have to hold it up there the whole time. There we are. Okay, facts and figures. This will draw into focus what we're talking about. Missouri River flows 2,341 miles, the longest river in North America. Now, I just always thought for sure that the Mississippi River was longer than the Missouri, but not true. The Missouri River is the king. Touches 7 states: Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. The name came from the Missouri tribe of Native Americans. It stood for people with wooden canoes. How appropriate is that? I think that's pretty cool. Missouri River now has 15 dams, serves for flood control, which is going on right now on parts of the Missouri River. Believe me, there's been heavy rains to the southeast of us, and it's already important that it's serving for flood control. Hydroelectric power, irrigation is a big thing in some parts of the Missouri River, and water supply. It was once a braided, meandering channel, if you can believe that, out of the Missouri River. But it was just once a beautiful meandering stream. And of course, not as much current because of that. And really was a beautiful place. Large parts of it now have been channelized for navigation. At one point, they thought barge traffic was very important. Now, a lot of what is was being transported on those barges is being transported by trucks, but there still is some barge traffic on the river. So, oh, going the wrong way. Okay, there's our famous people. I think somebody in here was talking about that earlier before we got up here. It was discovered when President Thomas Jefferson commissioned an expedition to explore the newly obtained Louisiana Purchase. You have to remember, back in those days, that was undiscovered, uncharted territory, you know, along the Missouri River. They knew this river stretched out west, but they didn't know where it went. They didn't know what was on the land along there. You know, what type of wildlife there was and that type of thing. So Thomas Jefferson commissioned Lewis and Clark to do the exploration. Somebody was saying the goal was to find a water route to the Pacific Ocean. And that is true. It doesn't, the Missouri River does not meet the Pacific Ocean. There was some thought that it did, although there are tributaries that do go to the Pacific Ocean. But we're going to talk about where its headwaters are and what they found there. Started in St. Louis and traveled westward along the Missouri River. It was also called the Corps of Discovery. It was a team of 45 men, led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. And you know what? I mean, they had to be really adventurous type people because they had no idea where they were going and what they were going to encounter when they were on their way. So it had to be really adventurous people to do that. They mapped uncharted territory, and you know, sometimes people in history books, they kind of paint the Native Americans as, you know, hostile and everything like that. But most of the Native Americans that Lewis and Clark encountered were very cordial, and they were just as curious about the white men that were exploring this land as the other way around. And they helped Lewis and Clark and even helped them with food and that type of thing. And it became a somewhat of a friendship. And they expanded scientific knowledge of the West. I mean, they didn't even know what the West was at the time they were leaving St. Louis. But by the time they got out there, they found this gorgeous, gorgeous beauty. How's that for the Missouri River? Not bad, huh? The Missouri River and the headwaters, it starts with the confluence of the Jefferson, Madison, and Gallatin rivers in southwest Montana. Now, anybody who knows anything about trout fishing will know that those three rivers are world famous trout waters. They just have beautiful scenery. And what do you think about when you think of trout water? You think of mountains and a cold stream and stuff. That's what the Missouri River is out there out west in Montana. Clear, cold, and draining from the Rocky Mountains. I mean, it's hard to imagine out here in the heartland that where the Missouri River started is a gorgeous, gorgeous area. Missouri River Headwaters State Park is nationally known. It's right at the headwaters, offers fishing, camping, hiking, and just taking in beautiful scenery. How's that for the Missouri River? Looks just like downtown Kansas City, doesn't it? Trophy waters. Near the headwaters, it offers world-class trout fishing. Fishers catch trophy browns and big rainbows too. And anybody who knows about fly fishing in here knows that the most fun type of fly fishing you can do is when you use dry flies. And by dry flies, I mean that the flies that don't sink in the water, they go right on top. The trout rise to take all these insects right off the top of the water, and they imitate these little flies that the fishermen tie themselves many times. They float right on top of the water, and when you move them a little bit, the trout mistake them for the real thing. And it's a thrill to see a big old trout come up and they just slurp them off the top of the water. They just, and as soon as they do, you set the hook and there's, how many people saw the movie A River Runs Through It? It's very accurate. It really is. I mean, it's, Hollywood did well on that because it's much like that where, you know, people will wade into this cold water and catch these huge trout like that. The most famous area is below Holter Dam. And I have to give a photo credit on this one because that's not my photo. I wish it was. It's a gorgeous photo. Protected beauty. Now, this stretch that we're talking about, people treasure this thing and it's unique. It's not something that you're going to see in multiple states or anything like that. This was so beautiful and so unique that Congress designated, I get a kick out of this, 149 miles. Why didn't they make it 150 miles? That other mile must have been a real dump or something, you know, but 149 miles. I checked that figure and then I double checked. I said, really? 149? Okay. And they, of the Upper Missouri as part of the National Wild and Scenic Riverway System. Congress called it irreplaceable legacy of the historic American West. That's how unique and beautiful this part of the Missouri River is. Breathtaking scenery like what we're looking at there, big bluffs, big rocky outcroppings, and just a winding channel, much more of a wild river and a wild scene than what we're used to from the Missouri River. Upper Missouri National Wild and Scenic River starts at Fort Benton in Montana, and it runs to the James Kipp Recreation Area near Winifred, Montana. So that stretch right there, you're not going to see hotels. You're not going to see a hamburger stand. Not going to see a bait shop. It's just wild. It's preserved. And I think that's a neat thing that Congress is doing this with some of these rivers, that they just, as long as this act is in place, they're not going to develop anything on these special rivers. Whoop, whoop. One more. Okay, it flows into North Dakota to Lake Sakakawea. Anybody ever heard of Lake Sakakawea? Well, then I'm giving you new information, I guess. There's a dam in Garrison Dam in central North Dakota on the Missouri River. What it does, it just widens out the Missouri River. It flows there, they have this dam, and it just widens out the Missouri River and forms this enormous reservoir. The nation's third largest man-made lake behind Meade and Powell. Take a look at the size of the fish that thing produces. That's a salmon. And they have just enormous fish like that, also walleyes, perch, salmon, bass, and they have a number of public access areas where you can camp. And with a lake of that size, if you want a true wilderness feeling to the place you're going to, you can find it there, because you can imagine a reservoir that big and they have public access points where you have camping and that type of thing, and really just get away from everything and just enjoy beauty. Oh. South Dakota. Big reservoir country, again. 4 large reservoirs, they were formed by dams on the Missouri River. Lake Oahe, Lake Sharp, Lake Francis Case, and appropriately, Lewis and Clark Lake. How many people have been to South Dakota? Hey, did you go to river country? Missouri River country? I mean, these lakes and things, or no? Oh, boy, if you get a chance to go again, go to some of these reservoirs. They're just gorgeous. They really are. Again, known for clear water and huge expanses of open water. World-class pheasant hunting on the public land surrounding the reservoirs. Hunting and fishing has a huge impact on South Dakota's economy. You know, we tend to look at the Missouri River as is utilitarian in our area for, for irrigation, flood control, that type of thing. But in South Dakota, with these 4 big reservoirs like this, it's a major industry in South Dakota. I mean, I think tourism is second only to farming in South Dakota. So when there's been all kinds of things where there's water fights for, not with a squirt gun, that type of thing. I mean, we're talking about fighting for water rights among the states. And South Dakota's always sticking up for the tourists and the tourism and things, because they say if they take too much water out of their reservoirs to send downstream, that their tourism is gonna suffer in itself. So, everybody, it's really interesting with the Missouri River touching so many different states that everybody has their own idea of what the Missouri River is important for. And that's another thing that I think is fascinating. It's just really touches the culture of the people living along the river. Lake Oahe, that thing is enormous. How many, did you go to a town called Pierre when you were in South Dakota? Pierre, it's a state capital?
I don't think so.
Okay, you probably went up to around Mount Rushmore and things. Okay, but Pierre is their state capital. And again, quite appropriately, there's a lot of water recreation right around their state capital. Lake Pierre is enormous, another enormous reservoir. 374,000 acres, stretches for 231 miles. The fourth largest man-made body of water in the United States. Just known nationally for its walleye and smallmouth bass fishing. But this one has 50 public use areas along its shorelines. That again is very important because people have a place for recreation. I mean, some places, some states, there just isn't public access to the land or the water. But places like this, South Dakota, there is a ton of places where you can camp and just enjoy the wilds, and great hiking, great canoeing, and great fishing and boating. I mean, really, South Dakota is a great place for people who love the outdoors. Missouri River in the heartland. By the time the Missouri River flows into Nebraska and Iowa, it changes its face. It's no longer this beautiful, clear stream. It picks up a lot of sediment, a lot of silt. And that's because tributaries drain thousands of acres of farmland. But one thing that I really found interesting when I stopped there, I stopped in Sioux City, Iowa. And it's somewhat similar to what we have in Kansas City, except it's a much narrower stream bed. But it has this big marina, 225 slips of boats up to 40 feet long. And they're out water skiing, jet skiing, boating, fishing. They're not embarrassed of the Missouri River. They treasure the Missouri River. And I thought that was really cool because it's not a whole lot different than what we see here in Kansas City, but it's a major point of recreation for people. Large riverfront park accommodates camping and day use. A lot of people will just come down to the river, just to have a picnic. Even, business people will come down to the river and just sit in the picnic grounds and just watch the river while they eat a lunch or something like that. So we need that in Kansas City. We're going to go into that further. Okay, this is one thing I got a real kick out of. Missouri River forms the boundary between Iowa and Nebraska. When Iowa became a state in 1846, western boundary was described as the middle of the main channel of the river. Makes sense to me. Yeah. When Nebraska achieved statehood in 1867, they said, okay, that's sounds like a fair deal. We'll go with it. Well, then the Great Flood of 1877 caused the river to change course near what is now known as Omaha. That created a section of land and a horseshoe lake called Carter Lake. Well, that's fine. My graphic there shows where that section of land once was, but as the river changed course, it arranged the silt and everything to cut it off and deposit a horseshoe lake up in Nebraska. So now Carter Lake is cut off from the Missouri River, but both states are fighting for the rights to call Carter Lake located in their state. So they had this big legal battle to see who gets to call Carter Lake part of their state. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1872 that the land belonged to Iowa. Well, that's great, but it's in Nebraska. So this has they can claim two states. Carter Lake can say, well, we're in Iowa. No, we're in Nebraska. I mean, both states lay claim. So interesting. And there have been other things in Congress introduced to get Carter Lake back as a part of Nebraska, but it hasn't worked. Missouri's migrational path. Think about it, when geese and ducks migrate south or migrate north, they need a compass. I mean, it's genetically imprinted where they go, but it's also genetically imprinted that they follow the Missouri River. And it's fascinating. There are all these wildlife areas, refuges that they've built along the Missouri River. And these geese and ducks will stop at these wildlife refuges. I took this just about a month ago, that picture. It's snow geese. And I've said in other presentations, I don't understand how these dudes or dudettes avoid hitting each other when they get up. You know, I'm always looking to see if one of them knocks the other one out when they're getting up, but it looks like chaos, but they get up in synchrony and they don't hit each other. It's one of those mysteries of wildlife that I've never been able to understand, but it is awe-inspiring. Going up to Los Bluffs. Los Bluffs it's just 5 miles northeast of the river, not too far from here. How many people have been here? Squaw Creek, used to be Squaw Creek. Fascinating place, fascinating. I mean, you can, and that's a direct impact. I mean, directly related to the Missouri River. It's about 5 miles away. It's an easy drive for us. It only takes less than 2 hours to get up there on I-29. You go up there and you get a National Geographic look at wildlife every time you go up there. You know, there's always something different that's going on. In early December, you would not believe the number of bald eagles there are at Los Bluffs. One of the highest wintering populations of bald eagles in the country. And why? Because of those guys. Those guys migrate there, the bald eagles follow. The bald eagles are the cleanup crew. They're the Grim Reapers. And they wait for the weak ones to either pass away or struggle, and they'll hone in on them. It's an easy meal. In fact, I've seen some amazing things. One of the most amazing things I saw is there was a couple of dead geese laying on the ice in front of a big flock of snow geese. And 2 eagles came down, and instead of one going to one goose and the other one going to the other goose, they decided they both wanted the same goose. They got in this huge fight. They were flying up in the air with their talons out and just flogging each other and everything like that. Finally, they land and they said, well, I didn't really want that anyway. So they both fly away. And I thought, well, they were kind of greedy, or maybe they're in a bad mood or something. They just wanted to fight. Then I look out of the corner of my eye, and what's coming across the ice but a coyote, just saying to himself, well, if they don't want it, I'll eat it. So it was thin ice and it was fairly shallow, about knee deep to me. And this coyote kept on falling through the ice. And instead of panicking or anything, he would just fall through the ice and he'd kind of shake it off, get right back up on the ice, and just real calmly walked over to that goose, got it in its mouth, and went back in the woods. I thought, boy, you know, you want to look at Mother Nature, there's a lot of it going on up there at Los Bluffs. So I would highly recommend, if you have a weekend day or something like that, it's only 2 hours up there. They have an amazing wildlife auto loop. It's a 10-mile loop, gravel road. It's right around the rim of the waterfowl marshes. And it leads all the way from real close to the water, and where you can see snow geese and ducks really close, and that you can see, you look up in the trees overlooking the water, there's bald eagles, not at this time of the year, but in the fall. And you'll see bald eagles up there and then the road swings around into a wooded portion. And you'll see just a lot of woodland creatures, like just an amazing diversity of songbirds, but also deer, sometimes turkeys, sometimes pheasants. So it's a great place. My family, we have a tradition of going up there Thanksgiving weekend. That's right when things are building up, when the bald eagles are really getting up there pretty thick and stuff, and great place to take photographs, just a great place to relax, just not, not strenuous at all. You can get out and hike if you want to, but you can see everything right from your car too, so just a great place. Go up I-29, take it. I've got this memorized because I go up there so much. Go to the Rulo, Nebraska exit, then turn left, and you go down about 1.5 miles, and it'll say Wildlife Loop. Turn right, go in there, and if it's on a weekend, you'll join the parade. There's cars going along there, but if you go on a weekday, there are times when you can pretty much have the thing to yourself. And the wildlife obviously lets down when there's not a lot of people up there. So. Yeah, went the wrong way. Across Missouri. Can you believe that blimp lives in the Missouri River? It looks more like an ocean fish or something, doesn't it? I mean, it's amazing. You know, the Missouri River, when it goes across our state, it's channelized to provide navigation and the barge industry. That eliminated a lot of key fish and wildlife habitats because they like back channels, estuaries, some calm water, that type of thing. But it still has an amazing amount of life to it. You know, even this ditch, this muddy ditch that goes through our state, like I showed you in that lead slide with all the timber along the edge and stuff like that. There's still a lot of life in the Missouri River. People say, oh, how can that muddy water still hold fish? It holds huge fish. Now, when you have huge fish like that, it usually means you don't have a huge population of fish because the big fish are getting more to eat because they're not having to compete with a lot of other fish. But there's a lot of catfish and a lot of good sized catfish in the river. They catch trophy catfish right in the shadows of downtown Kansas City. People say, well, how can that be? You know, that water looks so bad and everything. You have to consider what the Missouri River looks like underneath the water. And underneath the water, there's ledges around Kansas City. There's
Caught in the
ledges,
Missouri River.
pumps, and that type.
Caught in the Missouri River.
Bait fish love to concentrate in those ridges and along drop-offs and things like that. And that's where the catfish will follow. They don't care if there's a skyscraper up there. They just care about that little bait fish that's swimming in front of its nose. They say, that's like our McDonald's, that's fast food. You know, they don't have to go too far for that good stuff. How many people know about the Missouri River 340? Somebody in here told me about what they do, yeah. Oh, would you? Okay, well. Missouri River 340 is amazing. It's a 340-mile kayak and canoe race from Kansas City, Kansas, right where it flows right where the Kaw River flows into the Missouri, to St. Charles, Missouri. It's the longest paddling marathon in North America. Generally in the summertime, it's scheduled for July 8th to 11th this year. It takes off now from Kaw Point Park and in Kansas City, Kansas. And then it goes all the way to St. Charles, Missouri. And it is mostly like an endurance marathon, you know, just to say that you completed it is something. But people who are really serious about it, they are timed. They are timed. They give you so much time to finish the race. And they do hand out trophies and bragging rights for the person who make it all the way. Now, each one of these participants, the kayakers and canoeists and that type of thing, they have a support team that goes along with them. Some of them go by land, some of them go by motorboat. And just to make sure that everybody's okay, they go through some rough stuff. One of them is barge traffic. And if everybody's seen a barge coming down the river, see the wake that they put off. Imagine yourself being in a little canoe and you're trying to, it's like you're on the ocean or something like that. So just a fascinating race. It's a tradition here in Kansas City. It's been going a long time. And you know, it attracts a crowd. It really does. It's a pretty cool thing. And to see them start off like that and with our skyline in the background, I think it's pretty neat. Big river, big floods. We have had some doozies around here. And of course, when you have a river that drains that much land and is channelized like it is, back in the old days, when there were floods, it would spread out back in the channels and the you know, the parts where it would meander, the flood water would spread out and it would kind of cushion the blow. But here, it's a straight shot. Once you get to the Kansas City area, it's a straight shot. And that means if you have a lot of water, if you have a lot of rain or snow melt, it's gonna spill. It's gonna come up over the sides of the banks. And we've had some big ones. The Great Flood in 1993 is the one I remember the most. Rapid spring snowmelt. It had stayed cold for a while, and then all of a sudden it got warm. And when it got warm, we had a lot of snowmelt that went into the Missouri River. But perfect storm, it also started raining really hard. And you got a combination of the snowmelt and the rain, and it just really overwhelmed the Missouri River. It had flooding in multiple states, created millions of dollars of damage, not only to towns, river towns, like I live in Parkville, and which is a river town, and we still have pictures up where it came. We have a hill down to the river. Our main street goes down a hill, and it came halfway up that hill. And buildings in Parkville still have marking for tourists saying this is how high the water came in 1993. So it was amazing. Like our bank building was water was halfway up in the bank building, and businesses just got flooded and everything else. So the Great Flood of 1844. That's about the year I was born. So I remember that one too. We have to take history books for granted on this one, but I guess that was the greatest flood of all time in the lower Missouri River, is brought about by just giant spring rains. And they didn't have the levees and the things like we have now. There wasn't any dams or anything else to impede the water once it started spilling out of the banks. So it was really something. 2011 flood, how many people remember this? Do you remember about Nebraska? We didn't get it so bad here, but Nebraska just got hammered in 2011, which wasn't that long ago. And they just, they had billions of dollars in damage, a lot of it to farm country, but also to some little towns and that type of thing. And then 1951 flood, it was devastating for Kansas City. It destroyed the stockyards downtown. Stockyards at one point in Kansas City were a major deal, and it just destroyed the stockyards down there. I got a kick out of this picture. I mean, you know, there's a little island where these houses are that weren't touched by the flood. I wonder if those people planned on building on a mound like that, or if they just got lucky. But even their driveways, look at they could still drive up to their house and stuff, and it looks like there's still vehicles parked out there, but it's interesting what Mother Nature, how selective Mother Nature can be, because, yeah, the house on the right there, looks like you could still get to it, but who knows what stage of the flood that was in. If the water was still coming up, they're in trouble. Okay, I got one more slide here. It's not doing, there it is. How many people know what they are? Know what those are? Yep, Asian carp. Asian carp. And they are a nuisance. They're a giant nuisance. They've gotten into the river. Because the Missouri River is such a giant riverway or giant river system. Yeah, there's invasive species get into these riverways. Originally, these Asian carp, silver and bighead carp, they were brought over here and for aquaculture farms. And it was okay to a certain extent. They were raised for food, and I've had them, and they're not bad. I mean, I'd rather have a steak, but you know, they're okay. But a lot of them were ground up for pet food, for fertilizer, and that type of thing. And it was a pretty little side industry. Sounds great, but like everything else that's introduced from someplace else, they got into during a flood, they got into the Missouri River. And the carp said, man, I'm liking this place. They just flourished. And people say, well, what's so wrong with that? Well, they're crowding out our native species like catfish and even common carp, that type of thing. And the big thing with these flying carp, as I put it, you pull into a little side channel and the silver carp startle, and they start coming out of the water like popcorn. I've had times where, well, my friend played a joke on me. We were fishing on the Missouri River around Leavenworth. And he said, well, let's go over in this little side channel. I think there's some catfish in there. So we go in there and we motor in there, and all of a sudden, not that bad, but it was still, there were fish jumping in our boat and everything. You know how they always say, the fishing's so good, the fish are jumping in the boat? It's not too wild when this happens. People have been knocked out. They've people have, they hit them in the head and they've been knocked out, and I had them hit me in the shoulder and everything like that. And it's kind of funny at first, but then after a while you say, not so much fun. Let's get back out on the main channel. And then you got a little bit of a cussing out for doing that, but it's just, it's a thing of nature. It's amazing that some of these invasive species can take off like that. They're common in calm water, and they'll startle and jump out of the water at the sound of an approaching boat. They react, they're real skittish. If they hear a motor coming down this side channel, they'll start popping. And there's a major effort to get them out of the Missouri River, and especially to keep them out of the Great Lakes, because they don't want them getting into the Great Lakes, because then they can cause real damage when they've got a big lake like Lake Michigan to take off in. But that's not the only invasive species that we're battling in the Missouri River. Zebra mussels were introduced from ballast water from cargo ships, and they made their way into the Missouri River too. How many people have seen a zebra mussel? Anybody? They're a little tiny mussel like that. Got a razor sharp shell to them. If you go to a lake or something that has zebra mussels and you go on a swimming beach, you're gonna cut your feet, because they're just huge mussel beds that'll gather in places and stuff, and they're a pain. They will clog up a water intake system in lakes that have a lot of zebra mussels. You look on the bottom of an outboard motor, they're just covered with these colonies of zebra mussels. So, they're a real problem, and it's the same thing like with the silver carp. They're really taking efforts to reduce the population. The good thing, if there is any good thing about zebra mussels, is they'll, even in their natural state, when they really overpopulate a lake or something like that, seems they run in cycles, because I know some of the reservoirs around here that were really once just filled with zebra mussels, it's not that big of a problem anymore. And it's not because we were able to control them. They just controlled their own population. So that's a good thing. I believe
Someone online mentioned that they've invaded the Great Lakes.
they have, but not, they have, somebody was asking, said they've invaded the Great Lakes. They have, but they've had enough attention put to that they've, right now, it's kept to a moderate level. It hasn't gotten terrible yet, but still, there's been bills in Congress introduced to control them, and have all kinds of gates from the tributaries to some of the Great Lakes to kind of control them and stuff. So yeah, it's something they're still keeping a real eye on, that's for sure. Now, this is when I think it's Elmer Fudd says that's all, folks. There is my information if you want to get in touch with me, if you have any questions. Or if you have any story ideas, I'm still writing. So never say die. So I appreciate it. How about questions?
Do the Asian carp have any natural predators?
Not really. I mean,
Nothing to hold them in check.
no, no.
So you're saying we should introduce some bull sharks into the water?
Well, yeah, then we'd have another problem we'd have to control. No, the really, I mean, other than, like the regular carp would have, I mean, yeah, fishermen, and even not as many fishermen because they're not so desired by fishermen. Commercial fishermen do target Asian carp and that type of thing. And then you have other mammals that feed on carp and things like that. So, but yeah, there's nothing to really keep them in check.
You had, mentioned like Sioux City having like the marina and that. Do you think, with any of the development that they're doing on the riverfront here, that would ever be something that they would consider?
That's interesting to bring that up because that is a real encouraging aspect of what's going on. They are starting to, and real nice housing along the Missouri River in downtown Kansas City. I have one of our family friends lives in an apartment up there, and they're able to look out the window and see people fishing and see wildlife walking along the bank on the opposite side, that type of thing. So, yeah, I think there's a group that is encouraging people to take advantage of the recreational aspects of the Missouri River. And I wouldn't be surprised if someday they did do that. I mean, we have casinos along the, I think just one casino along the Missouri River. But, I foresee a day when we do take more advantage of the river than we are now. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Someone online does ask if, I think they're referring to Lois Bluff, if it's open on like Easter and holiday weekends.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yes. They should call, yes, I think it's open 365. But they should check it out online, just it's with the National Wildlife Refuge System.
There's still a visitor center there?
Yep. Although the visitor center wouldn't be open on holidays and stuff. It's limited days when that's open, but I think it is open on holidays and things.
For those of you online, I posted the link to the survey in the chat. If you take a moment to fill that out, we appreciate that. And thank you, Brent.
Okay.
Great program, and thank you everybody for coming. I will send an email out once we have the recording available to everybody. And have a great evening.
Thank you.